being recorded.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we are having the second episode in the Thought Management series. So, I will request Dr. Lina to do a recap for those who are joining us for the first time. But I felt from the yesterday's conversation, it is relevant what I decided to share today. I don't fix problems, I fix my thinking. Then problem fix themselves. So I really like this quote from Louis Hay. So that's what we were talking yesterday. You know, problems are there, they will be there. We cannot change the problems, we cannot change the situation, but we can always change our attitude to fit in. We can always change our thinking pattern. And Dr. Lina talked about many type of distortion which happens in our thinking because of various reasons. So with that, I will hand over to Dr. Lina, and then we can recap and get started for today's session.
Everyone. So I'm just going to share a few slides to make today's presentation a slightly more maybe interesting and as well as maybe interactive. I would love you guys to participate and ask me questions, stop me at any point, and type a question in the chat box, or feel free to ask a question directly. So we started the thought management series yesterday. I'm going to quickly kind of do a recap, from yesterday's session first, and then move to the next part for today. So we were talking about, what are really thoughts? Thoughts are ideas or opinion produced by our thinking. These are sentences we tell ourselves. And I mean, we had a little discussion about how there is a mind and a brain, and how our understanding is that the mind creates thoughts and then the brain helps to actually manifest them or present them in a way. So like a software hardware analogy, at a given point we have several thoughts, and we know that thoughts affect our feelings, our body, our actions, and some thoughts are accurate, some are wrong, and some are just an opinion. So there's different ways one can understand what thoughts are. There's really no one single definition. These are just some kind of abstract way of thinking about what thoughts could be. I think I saw briefly a question pop up about what do you mean by sentences we tell ourselves. It is, again, this is not like a definition, but often we are, aware of some of our thoughts and we are talking to ourselves. And it's just like when we are, being aware of our thoughts, or we are often conversing with ourselves, those sentences or those, phrases that come to our awareness could be one way to define what thoughts can be. So again, these are just some really abstract ways to understand what thought. It's a very abstract concept. We really don't clearly understand exactly how thoughts come out. The understanding is that something like mind generates thoughts, and then the brain cells, neuronal cells, and neurotransmitters fire, and somehow there is a formation of this thought. Anyways, so I think, that was just an opening question from yesterday, so I thought I'll start with that. And then we were talking about how, we understand that thoughts have power. And there's actually a very strong evidence-based therapy that we use in field of psychology and psychiatry to really understand how thoughts have power and how we can learn to manage our thoughts. So the construct for CBT is that, thoughts affect our feelings, feelings drive our behaviors, and then physical sensations in our body. And this is, like an ongoing cycle. So I gave an example yesterday to help people understand how over and again this construct has been verified that every time you know, we think certain way, it drives a certain feeling, and then it impacts our attitude and our action. And in the long run, it kind of affects our destiny or future, is what a lot of the times you may have heard. Thoughts, make your destiny. So cognitive behavioral therapy actually focuses on two ways to help deal with some of those negative thought patterns. So there is thinking techniques or cognitive techniques. Cognitive or cognition is just a more fancy word for thinking. So, today I will be talking about some of those techniques to, challenge some of your negative thought patterns or correct them. And then there is another prong to it is that's the behavioral techniques, where we actually learn to modulate the physical sensations or experiences that come from our feelings, which in turn are driven by the thoughts. So there are, things like deep breathing exercises, mindfulness exercises, progressive muscle relaxation exercise, guided imagery. There's a varied number of different types of behavioral techniques that are out there that we use to modulate that feeling of intense, um, physical sensation that comes from feeling. Sometimes when we have extreme nervousness or extreme fear, we all might have felt that panic sensation in our body with heart beating fast and not able to breathe, or feeling dizzy, or feeling tingling numbness, feeling like you're losing your control. And so, what we understand is that when we are having, thoughts that are more generating negative emotions, such as fear or anxiety, our emotional brain, our primitive brain, immediately reacts to that threat and initiates a fight flight response. And as a result, there is release of stress hormones that give signal to different parts of our body or different organs of our body to initiate that fight flight cascade. And that's why we feel those intense physical sensations, which are very uncomfortable. So, you know, uh, in cognitive behavioral therapy, we learn to impact the thoughts, just like one negative thought can impact us, not just in our thinking. And we are like, often people are like, oh, I'm unable to get rid of this particular thought. It just keeps coming back like a circle, in a circular pattern. And so we are learning thinking techniques to work at that thought level. And then we are also trying to work on the impact of that thought on our body at the physical level by doing behavioral techniques. So, here are some common patterns of thinking. Under positive thinking, we could, subdivide that into your thoughts are more constructive, where you're saying things like, I can learn, I can do this. They are necessary, related to what you have to do. So those are necessary thoughts. And then positive thoughts, make you feel better. So on the contrary, negative thoughts are more destructive, more, like I was saying yesterday, coming from your unkind mind, that I don't know anything, I'm not good enough. Unnecessary thoughts could be, I really don't need to be thinking about something that's not even relevant. But sometimes, I go in that direction. What if this happens? What if that happens? And then negative thoughts are the ones that have, impact on us through negative emotions. And when we are thinking about just more what's not going right in my life, or what's in the worst, that's happening instead of what kind of good is happening, then certainly that impacts how we feel. So yesterday, I was telling you about how one of the steps to correct our thoughts is to actually identify if there are any unhelpful thought patterns or thinking traps. And another word for that is cognitive distortions. So, all of us have these thinking traps or cognitive distortions in our thinking. It's not like unique to just like, oh, some people just do it and others don't. But, the importance there is the reason we want to understand these labels is in order for me to correct something, I need to know what's wrong with it first, right? Only when I'm convinced that there's something wrong about this, I'm not going to make an effort to correct it. And so when I am able to label a particular thought that I am, you know, having as, oh, I'm doing, you know, mind reading now. I'm doing fortune telling. I'm jumping to conclusions. I'm overgeneralizing. Oh, right now I'm doing all or nothing thinking. I'm just, being, you know, on focusing on it's all black or all white. There's no gray zone in my thinking pattern here. I'm disqualifying positive, or I'm, going by this like I should, and I hold myself down for so many things, so many shoulds that overburden me and make me overwhelmed and anxious. So these just help us to figure out what kind of themes are generally there in my thinking and where do I need to make an effort to correct some of those negative thoughts so I can have more positive feelings and positive impact on my body. So, to summarize briefly from what we covered yesterday's, we kind of understood that our thoughts can be positive or negative. And I actually have a power to choose, or I can think of ways that will make me feel better. I have a bit of choice, even though inherently I might think about something more negatively or look at half glass empty versus full. I have the ability to change that and reprogram that. And one of the ways to understand that, your internal world has both positive and negative thoughts, and negative thoughts are like the pollution in your internal world. And if you want to mold your internal world reality to achieve a healthy mood and healthy life, then you will have to work on reducing that pollution or getting rid of that pollution. So, with that kind of background and kind of a few, um, labels or descriptions and the cognitive distortions that we talked about and the handout you received, I don't know if anyone made any effort yet to look at, what are some of the categories of those cognitive distortions or negative thoughts you think affects your mood the most. If any one of you has taken a moment to look at that handout that Poonam had emailed or put um, on the mailer list for everybody, if you had a chance to look at that and if you identified a couple that you feel like are relevant for you, I would, appreciate that. No pressure, but that might be kind of a first step to think about how, we can start using some of the material I'm sharing to actually use it in the day-to-day life and, use it to implement or start some process of change. Sorry, what am I saying? Yeah. So, I, Poonam, would you be able to read out the questions or comments coming?
Absolutely. And I will share with you again. I did share it with Mailer today. If you're on Parents or Masala, you should have it. If not, I can share it again. But I wanted to ask one question, Dr. Leena. I experienced it myself. So today we had a very open conversation. We had a staff meeting, and I work directly with customers all around the globe, and
Mhm,
customers are going through a lot of emotions themselves.
mhm.
And when they write to me, I do feel for them.
Yeah.
I want to help them, but at the same time, I need to get work done. So I felt very emotional for them. I can't be selfish, mean, nagging them, sending them emails 10 times. So I felt, I have empathy, but why my management doesn't understand?
Mm,
So I don't know if I can. I was going through the checklist. I don't know if I should say I have emotional reasoning in my mind and
mm,
I'm expecting others to understand me. Maybe they
mm,
don't have that much emotions as I do.
mm. Well, I think, more than emotional reasoning, Poonam, I think people who are generally more empathic and have more of this sense of how, difficult it is for others in the current times, and if you can put yourself in others' shoes and feel that pain, I think that's considered to be more of you are very emotionally intelligent. You are very, sensitive to feeling how this would feel if I were in their shoes. And so, you know, I think uh, I can understand that you are sensing that discomfort and pain, but you're also compelled to kind of do the work you're expected to do. And I think that's kind of what happens typically, right? In this fast-paced go life, and we have goals and we have targets to meet. We keep going and often just suppressing our emotions and our thoughts and feelings about different things, and don't take a pause to actually look at what that is and what to process that or find a way to work through that. And honestly, what I see in my work in my office, the people who come in with anxiety or depression issues, they've been brewing this for a long time. It's not something that happens overnight. They have been, looking at these tendencies about negative maladaptive thinking patterns and, feeling down or feeling worried and fearful, but kind of keep going because of the pressures and demands of life, or, have no time to sit down and take a pause and kind of, we all, I feel like, have done a good job really understanding taking care of our physical health much more in the last decade. We really have made effort to eat more healthy. We make time for exercising, being more active. But we really don't pay much attention to taking care of our mind, an unfortunate reality of how it is. We take care of our body, which of course, is our instrument, our medium to do tasks and works and whatnot we have to do. But the 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 hard drive, the mind, which is really behind getting everything done, is one that's ignored, unfortunately. And and so my whole purpose to doing some things that I've been doing with conducting some mindfulness exercises in the last couple of weeks and doing this with you is really coming from this perspective that prevention is better than cure. We can become more aware of what we need to do to take care of our mind better. And if we can really do that, just like we have started to become more aware of taking care of our body, I think we will really have so much less rate of depression. I mean, unfortunately, WHO has declared depression as a second leading cause of death in the world. So, like I was saying, like, the people I work with, they would, come to me and say, I've been kind of like this since my childhood, but I never even knew that I was thinking in a way that was actually starting to affect me so much. And one day I would be so incapacitated by that. And so I think it is very important to take care of our mind, to do some of this work consciously, so we can take good care of our overall health.
Sure, Dr. Priya. So the question I had, I will put myself on.
Poonam, are you there?
I thought somebody else wanted to ask a question. So my question is, you did share some of the CBT techniques with us, but can somebody do this CBT therapy on himself or herself?
Yes. So, I was going to go over some strategies today with you guys to actually give you some tools. It's actually something we all can do. You don't necessarily need to have a therapist. There are, in fact, now a lot of online tools that also guide you. But, it is a pretty straightforward, pretty rational and logical approach. And if you have certain techniques or tools you can, build your toolbox with, I think you can really work on it on your own. And yes, it does need effort. It's not like, oh, you learn this and overnight you're going to start thinking positive. But, people who are motivated to bring that change, they really find this approach super helpful. So, the question, of course, I get asked always is like, okay, you're telling us all about what CBT is, why you should recognize these thought patterns. Now, I know that I have some negative patterns and I have negative thoughts. So, what are some of the ways I can change them to make them more neutral or positive? So, there is this very cool technique called detective thinking. And what we are doing in this is we are becoming detectives of our own thought. So if we think about what detectives do, detectives actually go about finding evidence, right, to prove that somebody, committed this crime or whatever. They investigate the case and they are looking for that evidence. That if there is an evidence that supports this, that means this person is guilty. If there's no evidence, then that means this person is not guilty. So, the same technique can be applied to our thoughts. So, as I am starting to become more aware of thoughts, like, you know, for instance, if I have a thought of what if I, you know, fail at my job and what if I lose my job, something like that. Um, so often what happens is whenever I'm thinking of something like, what if, this, what if that, I start believing in that thought. I start feeling like, yeah, that's what exactly is going to happen. Or I take myself pretending it's happening. And then I actually, get caught up in that. So because we know every thought drives feelings, when I'm worried about what if I lose my job tomorrow, I immediately feel that pit, in my stomach. I feel, oh my gosh, that's such a scary thing to happen to me. That's a worrisome thing to happen to me. How will my future be? Blah blah blah. And then I go in this whole other thoughts that even kind of generate that fear and worry more and more. And actually over if I keep thinking about that over and again, it starts impacting my ability to concentrate, to ability to be efficient and productive at work, and it generally lowers my confidence and self-esteem. So we know there is like a cascade that follows. So let's say if I'm examining that thought, that why should I believe in that thought? What makes me think that I will lose my job tomorrow? Is what's the evidence that supports this thought, that it's a true thought, and what's the evidence against this thought? So, I typically tell people you make two columns and write what supports this thought. What's the evidence that makes you think this way? Oh, the evidence is that last time my review was not that great. The evidence is that economy is kind of going down. Evidence to support that is that, I'm not as smart as some of the other people in my group, blah, blah, whatever. I may come up with those thoughts. Then I say, okay, let's put some thoughts or things that you think that will be going against. It's an evidence against your thought. And so, if we take a moment, and this is like, I've done it so many times, and you should try this on your own if you want to experiment with it. But more than likely, when you sit down and put your, head into what are the reasons this is less likely to be true, what's the evidence against it, you will find many, many more things that will come in that evidence against column. And so, once you have that black and white evidence of like, oh yeah, actually, I'm just thinking about evidence for, but there's a lot of things that doesn't support this, that, oh, even though that last review wasn't that positive, my history of reviews before has been pretty solid, so I need not worry. Or, even though the economy is going down, it's the universal state, and I'm sure there will be some kind of alternative plan lined up for me as well, like for others. Or, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing unfair comparisons by comparing myself with other people in the group. I think I have been keeping up with my work and I have, been performing well, whatever. So if I'm putting those in evidence against, I can start shaking that belief in that thought that I was believing 100%. And that can be a pretty, effective strategy to lower the power of that thought, to not get caught up in that and, start challenging it or correcting it. And the moment I'm shifting it from to being totally negative to maybe a little bit neutral to positive, it's going to modulate the feelings, it's going to modulate my behavior. So that's a very effective technique, that can be applied for a lot of your thoughts. Sometimes, you just need to even run it by another person. Talk to somebody, see if it's just how you are thinking about it, what others' opinion about it. Because sometimes we may just think from one perspective, but if you trust somebody and tell them, these are some of the reasons I think this is likely to happen, they may sit down and talk to you about it and tell you, hey, but I think there are these things to think about as well, which is kind of what often happens when we talk to a friend or somebody about it. They are able to shed a broader perspective, and the impact seems like, oh, it's much less. And so, and then there is also like, okay, so what, this is going to happen. There is this other way to think about it, like, okay, so maybe this is likely what's going to happen. So what? So, even if I am, going to be unfortunately in that position, so what can I do about it right now? So, what we know is that once, for certain unacceptable circumstances, such as now, if we accept what's going on, then we are able to actually face the situation. We are not caught up with that fear of like, oh my gosh, it's happening. Why is it happening? Why, how, when? But if I, say, okay, everybody's in this, I'm with them. And so what this happens, okay, so how can I focus on getting through this? That's where my ability and my thinking can be channeled to. And that's how I can survive that difficult moment. So I don't know if this is making sense. I will take a pause and ask questions.
Dr. Leena, it's awesome you shared that example. I had the same conversation with my colleague today, and
Yeah.
wonderfully, she's also there with me joining today. And we ended up saying the same thing what you said. If it happens, it happens. I'm still fortunate. I have, shelter, I have food, I have
Hmm.
friends, family. We are so grateful for many things.
Hmm.
So it's not end of the world if I'm losing my job. It's absolutely fine.
Exactly. So, I mean, it is really important to, the idea is to, not lose your energy by getting caught up in your negative thoughts, because we know they do impact your feelings and bodily sensations and take you down. And so the idea is to catch them early, correct them, make peace with them. Sometimes that's what we need to do. And then focus on problem solving, then, or looking at the big picture and practicing gratitude, kindness, all those things that we were doing during the mindfulness practices last week.
Very grateful to you, Dr. Lina, for sharing all the wisdom. I don't see any question coming up, and we have reached rather 1 minute past our scheduled time.
Hello.
If you like, we can take a pause now, and I can start that 1 minute meditation.
Sure. And we'll resume. I have few more strategies that I will keep, we'll be resuming this conversation. So we will keep talking about this a little bit more again.
And I wanted to remind everybody we are not meeting over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We will meet again on Monday. But my humble request to all of you is do listen to the recordings if you like. I will share that with you. You can share with your family and friends. Please do pay some attention. Like as we are saying, start your day with positive thought. Take a pause several times in a day. Like I'm going to do that 1 minute meditation. That's what I do throughout my day. I take 1 minute pause after every hour. I do positive affirmation, or I do that inner check, that detective games. What is my state of mind? How am I feeling? What's bothering me? And if I am in non-stop meetings, sometimes I do feel challenged, but even during bio break, or when you're drinking water, that time also I have made that habit. I always charge my water and then drink, because our body is 70% water. So water has memory. So whatever you're thinking, taking a pause, looking at the water, giving that positive vibes, drinking it, it is going inside your body, and it is kind of energizing you. So do develop that kind of habits. It is going to help you out during this time. So I see Sanjeev is trying to ask a question. Sanjeev, I don't know. Yeah, Nitin, I will definitely share that hand out to you. Um,
I do have one question. Hello.
Go ahead.
Is this audible? Hello.
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear
yes, we
you.
can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. One question is emotional intelligence and emotional unintelligent. How can we differentiate these two terminology?
Okay. So, Poonam, I want to be mindful of the time. Sanjeev, I want to certainly be able to answer that question to you.
No problems. No
Uh,
problems.
yeah. So, would it be okay if I, either email you the answer about this, or we start with this
No
question
problems.
on
No problem.
Monday?
Okay. Okay.
Because I don't think the answer is going to be short, so I
It's all
certainly
right.
want to
Okay.
be
Okay.
mindful
Thank you.
about everybody's time.
Okay.
But I
Okay.
will
Okay.
make a note of this, and I would
No
certainly,
problems. Yeah. No problems.
you can email me if you want to get the answer
Okay.
before our next meeting on Monday, or on Monday I can certainly talk about
It's all
this.
right. No problems, sir. Thank you.
For your
Sounds
understanding.
Thank
good. And there is a Cliff, where am I posting WebEx recording? So, Cliff, I did send it to Mailer. Maybe you are not there, so I will send it to you. And Nitin, you're asking where you can access mindfulness sessions. So we had a whole series last week. So we do have recording. I will again share that box link with all of you because it's going to be disabled after tomorrow. So those recordings are very helpful. Even you can play those recording in the morning or during the day whenever you want to sit for a quick meditation. Okay, so let's take a pause and I'm going to play that music and conduct 1 minute meditation. Then we will say goodbye to each other. So yeah, but before that, I wanted to share one more slide. What I felt was really nice, what I'm grateful for. So my request to all of you is, now weekend is coming. Do spend some time with yourself and write down, what you're grateful for. Some of the ideas are given here: clean air, Mother Earth, family, friends, sun. is rising, sunset is happening, food, clean water, right? Even tell your kids to do that exercise with you. They like their teachers, their friends. Yeah, they may complain schools are closed now, but they're learning. So make it family time and do maybe this kind of drawing what I'm sharing here. So I think it's a good idea to instill that kind of thinking in our children. They are our future from the very beginning, right? So it shapes up their personality and they are more resilient. Okay. Taking just a minute, I sit comfortably. Gently, my breath slows down. I relax my body. I let go of speed, of the rush and push of thoughts. Relaxing, letting go of these thoughts, I become still. I become peaceful. Peace flows through my mind, through my body. I am peaceful